Welcome back. And today I have a special one for all you little princesses out there. This is Princess Stories, and I'm going to tell a very good story, and my little kitten's here too to help me out. Let's begin. This princess story is called Georgia and the Dragon. It's a very good story. Princess Georgia swung by her legs from her favorite tree in the castle gardens. Everything looked very strange, and not just because she was upside down. It was because all the other trees in the garden had been chopped down for firewood. Suddenly, Georgia froze in horror. The woodcutter was walking towards her with an axe. "No!" she cried, and with a double somersault, she threw herself from the tree to block the path. "Don't cut down this tree!" The surprised woodcutter explained that he was simply carrying out the king's orders. "No!" Georgia wailed, running into the palace. "No!" she wailed, racing up the stairs 2 at a time, and nearly bumped into her mother. "Georgia, for once please behave like a princess," said the queen. "What's the matter?" Georgia begged her mother to stop the woodcutter chopping down the last tree, but the queen calmly explained that it was needed for firewood, and that it had been such a cold winter, every other tree for miles, including the local woods, had been chopped down, and the townspeople were shivering and hungry. "We could get the wood from the dark forest," said Georgia. As she said this, the servants gasped, and the queen went pale. "No, Georgia, we can't," she whispered. "Remember the dragon." Georgia did remember the dragon. There were lots of stories about how fierce he was. However, no one had actually seen him.
"So the silly dragon lives there?"
said Georgia. "People say he's fierce and rather fond of eating people, but it's time someone stood up to him." Despite Georgia's protests, the last tree was chopped down and burnt, and then there were no more trees and no more fires. A cold wind blew and snow began to fall. The castle grew icier and everyone felt terribly cold. "I'm freezing," shivered Georgia. "Someone must go and ask the dragon for help." However, everyone were too wrapped up in their scarves and hats over their ears to hear her. So Georgia jumped on to Smudge, her horse. "Well, I'll just have to go myself," she said, and she galloped off out of the castle before anyone could see her. As Georgia galloped along, all she could think about was how she longed to be warm. However, as the dark forest loomed closer, Georgia thought about the dragon. Was he very scary? Did he really eat people, even little girls? When they came to the forest, Smudge was too scared to enter, so Georgia tiptoed on her own. Hardly any sunlight shone through the trees, and everywhere was still and silent. So Georgia walked on through the gloom. She told herself that her trembling legs shook from cold, not fear. At last, she reached the cave with scorch marks on the walls. It had to be where the dragon lived. "I'm not scared," Georgia told herself as she crept closer. Suddenly, a twig snapped loudly under her feet. It made her jump. "Who goes there? Who goes there?" boomed the angry voice. Georgia peered into the darkness. All she could see were two big round eyes, golden eyes, staring back at her. She had come face to face with the dragon. Georgia wanted to turn and run, but instead she whispered,
Hello?
"What are you doing in my cave?" boomed the dragon. Georgia gulped. "I've come to see you," she replied, shaking. "Come to see me?" replied the dragon. "Why?" he boomed. Suddenly smoke curled from his nostrils. No doubt the dragon was wondering whether to fatten her up before eating her. Georgia explained that the only trees that were left were the ones in the dark forest. "Everyone's freezing because we have no firewood. They are too scared to come here to get some because you'll eat them." The dragon came closer to Georgia, and Georgia felt afraid. She reminded him how he liked eating humans. Now he was going to eat her. However, instead of eating Georgia, the dragon began to cry, and she realized that he was only a baby. "I'm so lonely," he sobbed. "I don't want to eat people. I just want someone to play with. Will you play with me?" Georgia felt really sorry for the dragon. She named him Gilbert and suggested they play hide and seek. It was very easy to find Gilbert because wherever Georgia came near him, he got so excited that he breathed out huge flames. They were so lovely and warm. They made Georgia think of her cold family, and she felt guilty. "Can I collect some firewood to take home?" she asked. "Yes," replied Gilbert. "I have some condition, though." And he bent down and whispered into Georgia's ear. Georgia and Gilbert collected a pile of firewood. Then Georgia climbed onto Gilbert's back, and they flew back to the castle, with Smudge trotting happily behind. The king couldn't believe his eyes when he saw his precious daughter flying home on the fiercest dragon in the kingdom. Everyone ran to hide. They dived into cupboards, under tables and chairs, trembling with fear. "Don't be afraid," said Georgia. "Look, we've brought firewood." Everyone came out of their hiding places and watched in wonder as Georgina laid a huge fire. Then, with one blow of his fiery breath, Gilbert set it alight. As they saw smoke coming out of the castle chimneys, villagers came running to get warm too. The king held a big feast to celebrate. There was laughter, games, and dancing. Then the king proposed a toast to Gilbert for offering them the wood and not expecting anything in return. "Actually, there is one condition," said Georgia. Everyone looked fearful. The king looked especially nervous.
Does he want our golden jewels?"
he asked. "No," replied Georgia, hugging Gilbert. She explained that Gilbert was lonely and wanted to live in the castle with everyone.
"Can he stay here, please, Daddy?"
pleaded Georgia. Gilbert held his breath. "Oh, of course he can," replied the king. Not only will we have a new friend, but our very own firelighter." Gilbert danced for joy, and everyone cheered. Georgia's cheers were the loudest of all. Not only was there going to be plenty of firewood to keep everyone warm, now she had her very own dragon. The end.